meeting of the Littlestown Area Board of School Directors. This is a live, in-person meeting open to the public in accordance with the Sunshine Act. By participating in this meeting, you are consenting to the recording, retention, and the future viewing of this meeting.
Nick Lovell.
Here.
Jeannie Ewan.
Here.
Stephen Yerger.
Here.
And Brian Nisman.
We stand for the pledge and roll of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
So there is no public comment.
All right, so we'll jump into the presentation. So tonight's presentation is going to be more of just an open air discussion about of the budget. So Tim and I met just last week with all the departments, Judy and a lot of them as well, to meet with all the departments. We got their initial budgets back with their initial priorities. So the problem is with the timing of this turnaround, we haven't had quite enough time to debrief from that and prioritize them. Other than what I have tonight, we have some initial ones that stood out. So that's what we'll talk about tonight. Those are some of the later slides. So the beginning slide here is just kind of a refresher course of where we've been from a tax standpoint here. So this here is the Act 1 index. So what this does is shows what the tax rate is. So the blue one is the statewide base tax rate index. So this is what PD puts out every year. It says this is the base index across the state for all the school districts. Subsequently, what they also do is they take personal metrics at every school district, all 500 school districts, and they do what's called an adjusted index, which is here in the red. So here at Littlestown, this is our personal adjusted index. So the blue is what the state says is the base. Everybody starts from there and either go up or down based off their metrics. So here in the school district, you can see they follow that trend. And right here's where we land at 5.2%. So back in October, we did a resolution that said we're not going to go out to referendum to exceed that 5.2%. So that means the board has the capability to go from anywhere from 0 to 5.2% within this budget. That's that. That's the portion on that. Refresher advice. So last year, that was the highest we've ever seen, was the 7%. This year, back down to 5.2. Based off of the IFO, the Independent Fiscal Office, we think that trend's going to continue back into this 3.5 range, where it was kind of settled there for a while. And then we saw that COVID bump, and now that's coming back. So then the green is what the board has approved here at a local level. You can see, I think this is the only year we ever went out to referendum. So 2016, 2017. The past 10 years are here. So just kind of historically where we've now, right in this time frame, 18, 19-ish, where we had this 2%. That was kind of like the full commitment to addressing the middle school. At that time, we didn't know that it was going to be a middle school, high school combination. At that time, I think we were looking at rebuilding a middle school. That kind of more conversations across the years. And so here, this 275 was the last one we needed for the building project, and then the most recent one, that 1%, we said we set aside for this account. So now we're going to have some conversations about what do we need here as a district for this year and subsequent years. So any questions on Act 1? Act 1 index for adjusted income. So then we'll jump ahead. So here, last year, we kind of been pushing this this grid here, which is the real estate tax increase. So every year we get to see what the average of averages of homes is, which is a $280,000 home. And then here on the left is the tax increase that the board can have it as half increments up to that 5.2%, like I said, which is the maximum that we've already committed that we will not exceed. So you can see, just take 1% for instance, 1%, the board would so decide a 1% tax increase. The average $280,000 home would see a $37.91 increase over their last year's tax. And this is a yearly increase, so this is what you would see at that 1%. And then you can do multiples of that at every percentage increase, all the way up to that $197.12.
So is there a, like, you have 400,000 here, and I imagine, I guess, it starts to really fall off when you get into 500, 600, 700. You know, so, but, you know, you have
Yeah, it would just keep going from there, so you can kind of see that the difference between the 300,000 to 400,000 is around $70.40. You could essentially kind of multiply that out another 100,000, which is similar in fashion up, and so on and so forth, and so so that's just showing the board, this would be conversations of what real estate is, but this is the impact. Now, I will let you know that this does not have homestead, farmstead information in. That comes out in late April, early May. So usually it's timing wise, if everything goes well, but the state comes out for the May FP&S, which is nice because then that funnels into the proposed budget that we passed.
Can you please remind us when your applications have to be in for the homestead act?
So applications are normally mailed out in December and they'll be back in January to the county. Receive those, reviews them, and either award or deny based off of your qualifications that you're in. Here at the district, we have no say in that. We just help postage on those applications.
I know in past conversations, we've talked about 70% of homes that could qualify. Is that still a aim or range? Or?
So I'll get a new file from the county in that April timeframe to tell us who's qualified and who's not. And then I take a percentage of them. So a 70% is 70% of parcels, so of tax parcels, qualify or within the homestead parcel. I don't know how many additional would qualify based off of this criteria. Like it can't be your second home or a rental home. Those don't qualify. It can't be commercial. Those don't qualify. So I don't know of the other 30% which ones would automatically be disqualified. How many of them just don't know that they can qualify. But last year when I ran the numbers, it was around 70% of all the parcels are receiving that county.
But I guess every year you try to talk about it so that people will try to climb on board. And really, I wonder if it's something we should start talking about in the fall. So you mentioned it, get people aware of it. It's like, you know, there was a real issue if you were a motorcycle rider. It was people just don't go for motorcycles, and then they did this program where they started, everybody just started saying, watch out for motorcycles. Next thing you know, all the accidents started going down because people started going. So maybe we could just encourage people to take advantage if that money is there. You know what?
I will add that usually when a tax parcel changes, I guess ownership, a lot of times that will automatically communicate bill in December. So if you were going to buy a new home, now or now the new owner in December, you'll get a form that says it's out of the homestead form. So obviously, if you have missed that, then that's not.
Okay, so the only thing I understand why you guys do this, to make it look like it's not a big deal in the taxpayers all getting a touchdown. But let's just be real, it is cumulative. It's year on top of year on top of year. It never goes down. So it's a little misleading, in my opinion. Because, and that's just all I got to say.
Well, I'll just say this is the only tool in our toolbox,
I get it.
the raise funds. You know, that you can knock on the state's door as much
Cut,
as you want.
you can cut out of your budget.
Well, we can go through that exercise, but then that's a whole lot, we can go through that, but then what do we cut?
Well,
And
here's the thing, we're talking about raising taxes, but we're also about to consolidate 2 buildings and personnel.
That's
Something's gonna shake out of there.
That,
You
a
raise
year
taxes.
from now,
Yeah, but you raise taxes now, that, I mean, that 1% or whatever it is always there. And you can't say you're definitely gonna need it, because things are, I mean, one of the big selling points was, we're gonna save so much money when we bring these 2 buildings together, and we don't have to pay for the other one, and we're gonna save utility costs and all this other stuff. So, it just, I don't know, I just think we ought to see how things shake out when we go doing tax increases.
valid point, the opposite end point is, we won't have that realization for multiple years out. Until we have all the consolidation, we can realize the efficiency of consolidating staff. Like, we have a few years till we get there, do we have enough fund balance on hand to get us to that? You know,
But why are you starting out the conversation with tax increase rather than telling us what it's for and what we're gonna do?
so when we get down to the budget discussion, we always say that we have increases in salaries and contractual increases every year. They generally outpace what we can in revenue, so the only leverage we have is to raise local taxes and bridge that gap. So I'm just making that realization is, zero doesn't last forever on tax increases. At some point, you have to accommodate those contractual increases.
Well, we have been having increases, and they're still in there, so.
But those increases were attributed to a building project, not necessarily contractual increases. That's where that comes from.
But it sounds like the taxpayers always having to put it out first before we go into this. And is there any way to look at that? Because you always say, I only can project this by looking at these 3 years here. And, you know, I mean, it's a difficult position to be in, and how do we serve the taxpayer by, you know, just not going, well, you know, this is the way it always is, or whatever. It's just, I'm trying to understand this system and how you're putting forth the request.
So at this point, I have no request at the moment. So this is just putting in front of you, here's what the millage rate would be if we would increase. It's just putting it out in the open. That's why I said tonight's the discussion. Now, there are priorities we have, I have in the next slide that says, these are some conversations that the board has had that we've heard, and there's conversations that administration has said, here's some things we want as a priority. But they have cost effect. They have a cost factor to them, and the only way we can pay for a lot of those things is a tax increase. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm putting this information on. So we'll jump into the priorities section. So here's like 3 buckets of priorities that kind of came through with the initial budget discussions. So, I mean, staffing, somewhat of equipment supplies, and then I have the other there. So staffing, there's 3 priorities with staffing. So with the high school, middle school restructuring their front office, they would move a part-time admin assistant to full-time admin assistant. Now I think they're still working on a job description on that, but that would be somewhat to restructure that to accommodate the difference between middle school and high school. So right now it's a part-time admin assistant. They are technically, with the movement of Cindy to maintenance, they are technically down that part-time assistant. So this would restructure that to a full-time assistant up there at the high school.
So, when they merge the schools, are they have consultants?
Right now they have the 3 plus this part-time.
Each building right now has a full-time and one has a part-time, like a 10.5 month, and the other one has a part-time 10 month, or a full-time 10 month.
Correct. So we have 2 12-month, full-time 12-month admin assistants. We have 1 10-month full-time admin assistant, and we have 1 part-time admin assistant. So the difference between a full-time and part-time is their hours. So take them more outside of the front office and go into auxiliary areas.
So that's why he said they were still working on a job description. So the move from the part-time to the full-time would, help with the tech department,
That's athletics.
athletics, central enrollment, and
That was it.
those three main
What are they doing right now?
Yeah.
And then helping front office. Right now, this part-time admin
No, no,
assistant.
no, no. What are these departments doing now?
Well, like I said, we moved Cindy, so athletics is just being covered by the one full-time assistant and a little bit here, I guess, by the part-time
Okay.
assistant. And then the part-time assistant kind of fills the gap with all the other duties. And tech has no admin assistant in her central, we don't have a central education person.
Well, right now, so for the TCA part of it, which is the Thunderbolt Academy, we have a middle school teacher who helps in the afternoon getting kids in and out of the cyber academy, where there's a lot of that that's clerical that this person could do so that he can be in the classroom more, especially when we combine buildings and have the two learning commons, because he's also technically the librarian of those buildings, as well as teaching part of the day.
So this,
The athletics part as well, I mean, that was moved, Cindy, in the discussion at the time was the 2-year part, the duration for the project. So that's not a forever, that warrants bringing additional staff on the top.
I think of right now with the 2 years, we need, like, this position is more or less needed at the moment, like when we restructure here at the high school. Some of it is the efficiency at the high school is the people that are here are being stretched too thin with their current load, and now they've got an additional workload. So this person would help alleviate that and be able to go above and beyond with go into some areas that haven't had that support that they should have.
So I'm understanding that you now have this issue, whereas when you didn't have us moving the two buildings into one, you didn't have an issue.
And some of this, we've realized some efficiencies we can gain with having this person, so like I said, the central registration, we've been lacking comparative to our peers. We as administration see the need for that, and we realize that it's a major gain to have a central registration person, so when somebody comes, all of this consistent across the district, which we don't have now, each building is siloed. Tech has not had an administration assistant for quite some time.
What did you do with the two?
They have just been making do. So it's you put some other stuff on hold because then you have to do that stuff yourself. Where you can create efficiencies and you can do more global things rather than you're just trying to do your day-to-day tasks.
I'm sure, like, I could find tons of things for just that person to do, like if we wanted to bring on more staff. The thing that I think that a fiscally responsible board wants to see is savings by attrition. I can see if we're adding departments, or if we're adding things, or we're adding programs for students that then creates the need for additional positions. But when we're continuously creating administrative positions that are non-teaching positions, non-instructional positions that are just to do administrative tasks, this is not the first one that we've done this year. I just don't think it's going to go over well personally, but that's just me.
Not only that, but I mean, why is this the first that we're doing? Because we had a surplus, we had other requests, and now this suddenly.
I think when say administration, we meet on a decent basis, and some of this was identifying the restructure of what the high school would need when they combine. We kind of had a hard look. I forget how many months ago this was, and we identified this, and we said we would put this in as a budget request for the subsequent.
I think, like, to me, what you're saying is, we thought things were gonna go away, not that, because of the consolidation. So.
And I'm saying is that we won't realize those consolidated efforts for quite some time. The urgency to have the staff to create those efficiencies now is the time timing of it is more urgent to have this, then it's gonna be multiple years until we have the deficiencies.
But still, the buildings are functioning at a current level now, and they functioned at that level for years, as far as I know, with a full-time administrative assistant and a part-time administrative assistant. I don't know how putting the buildings together somehow makes it necessary to need somebody for additional hours when you've got one less building.
We used to have 2 full-time positions. It went down to 2, and I think we had 2 or 1.5, because Cindy was up there and she covered